When is a good time to stop people pleasing and how it's not about being selfish? Hello, welcome to another Keeping the Conversation Alive. It's Will Perry here. So, yes, when's a good time to stop people pleasing? Now. So it's easy to say, less easy to do. Yes, I've got lots of obviously personal experience of doing this. I hope you're well, by the way. But also helping others through this stage, which is a particularly difficult one. And if you've got the phrase of standing in your power, which is awesome, and being empowered, which is awesome, but your programming is to give your power away, and to, even if you don't like to admit it, I did it for most of my life. Give your power away and to people please, because that's kind of how you've been brought up, walking on eggshells. Eek! Okay, I didn't want to wake the monster, and maybe you've had abuse or lived in through trauma. Sorry, I couldn't think of the word. Or parents alcoholic, or a kind of more subtle, because I get this, the extremes. People being sexually abused as children, which is awful, or just this like, no, I've had a happy childhood. Yet you've got low self-esteem. So where's that low self-esteem come from? It's like, oh yeah, this kind of the treading on eggshells carefully when the parents would, behind closed doors. Much more subtle, less obvious, less evident to some people, and sometimes that's more difficult to discover and find out when because I said for me, oh no, happy childhood, but that was within myself. I was happy, but there was a certain amount of treading on eggshells and fireworks going off, which you kind of didn't really understand. Maybe didn't of course as children you don't understand it, but you kind of feel it. You feel the tension, and then as you grow up, you kind of formulate opinions about it. And then as you grow older, you go, perhaps it's like, oh shit, it was a different way than I thought, and it was like, oh, that alters things, and it's quite interesting. So when is a good time to stop people pleasing? Answer easily, obviously, now, or maybe a few years ago. But how do you do it? So understanding the whole process that I take people through is to kind of understand what the low self-esteem is, where it comes from, and you can just you can take the test, by the way. That will help start this whole ball rolling in terms of, I don't have low self-esteem. I'm really confident, and it's different from confidence. Okay, so get the whole self-esteem thing down and get a score on it, and think, right, okay, where does this come from, and take you through this whole bloody journey of where joining the dots, understanding this stuff, understanding where it came from. You got all that, understanding a mother rule belief, great, you've got that. Then you come up with what you want your new belief to be, and then you've got to understand how you build a new belief in your brain. Great, so you're starting on that trail. Then guess what, you hit your old belief. It's like in every day. That's why it's good to have something to put into action, be it a business to build, be it whatever, something you're going to forge yourself a new path going forward. And then you're going to hit the block of your old belief. You're going to hit the resistance from other people, particularly families. Families are brilliant at they're a culture, aren't they? They're a specific, unique culture that you were brought up in. Well. You know about this treading on eggshells, but also they know, and they're very established in how they treat you. The old family jokes, the myths within the family, the way that the family operates, and if it's not a family for you, then the environment that you grew up in, or the people that predominantly know you the longest, because those cultures of people that know you, that's in work as well, and you can have that in work cultures, and it's really interesting and quite liberating often when you have a different job and you go to a different job and they don't know you for the mistakes that you used to make, or for the teasing that you used to have, or the way you gave your power away. And it's like, oh, you got an opportunity to grow and become something that you didn't believe perhaps you were, which is an awesome thing. So when you hit family resistance, that's a really challenging thing. And guess what? Christmas is coming. So that's often a really challenging time for people to come together with family, and then the old jokes come out, the old put downs come out, the old so for some people it's pertinent to, basically you have a path to choose, of course, and not choosing is a path of not choosing. So choosing a path of letting it and not being riled riled, not feeling crappy, not having it put you down and feel emotional and weak and feeble and pathetic, as one of my clients says. That not feeling like that is a win for you. Doesn't need to affect them. If you're like, yeah, give them something so they feel better and they feel good about it in the way that they do or need to. Otherwise, they'll come on, do it. Oh yeah, you got no sense of humour. Lost your sense of humour then, or oh, don't like that, do you? Rather than giving them the opportunity, you might choose to act it out. But the thing that has to be different is how you perceive it in here, how you know it, how you understand it, how you won't let it affect you. That's an awesome thing. Or the other thing is to push back against it. That's unkind. No, stop. Why would you say that? What makes you say that? And that's a lovely pushback. I did that with one of the clients recently with her family, and she was saying, oh, okay, because it's like, as soon as that comes on, and it triggers the old responses. So I said, what would happen if you just say, and it's a really simple thing to be able to say, what makes you say that? Whatever. It's almost like bloody childhood playground stuff, because it is quite immature. And I'm directing this at parents, to name call their own children. It's like, that's playground stuff, because they're immature emotionally often. And it's not their fault, because this is generational stuff. This is stuff that's learned from them, and they haven't, haven't been bold enough or strong enough to learn. But also that learning wasn't out there. There wasn't somebody on Facebook going, oh, look, this situation, this is down to this. Or there wasn't Jordan Peterson on YouTube, or there wasn't Gabor Mate on, and the millions of other resources that you have out there at your fingertips. Wasn't there for the generation. It was much stiffer, much more set out, and much more, yeah, absolutely. So just pushing back by saying, oh, what do you mean by that? In fact, I had the feedback from that recently from said client, and she said it was really interesting because it just stopped my mum in her tracks. Whereas normally she'd gather and enjoy. You could see it building the enjoyment. And when I say enjoyment, the deeper enjoyment, whereas it comes off as a negative, a negative kind of put down, but a stressy kind of comment, a negative comment, a put down, which previously would have led to tears or upset and in the client. But she used that phrase. She understood it. She was able to use it, and she chose to use it. And it was like, oh, what do you mean by that? And what that does is simply go mirror it back to the kind of what should we call them? The protagonist, and they go, oh, nothing, because they're just having a little jab, and then you're going, are you having a little jab? Mirror it back. No, I wouldn't be so puerile as, so it has that kind of effect. Oh, what do you mean by that? But not, what do you mean by that? Not a hurt thing. I'm not saying it's just a feminine thing, because I've gone through exactly the same thing with my parents. What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? It's a clarifying question. It's a clarifying. But if you do it neutrally, it's open and clarifying. If you do it negatively, what do you mean by that? Aggressively, or it doesn't. Yes. So yes, I've had that with my parents. And it's a more challenging thing, to stand your ground, to not put up with stuff, to kind of do things for you rather than being a people pleaser. If you just go along with everything, you come away changed, and it has an impact on you. And if you're thinking back of your family or your situations, and this absolutely transponds, wrong word, relates to relationships as well, completely. But it's interesting when you go from your own space into family that you don't live with anymore, for example. Then it's more contrasting. Whereas when you're in the relationship, it's maybe a little bit more difficult to see it. But when you go down and visit family or something like that, particularly parents, then or siblings, that you don't live with again, it can be really especially as you're developing this new belief, for example, that you want for yourself, and you're starting to grow in confidence in this and self-belief, then you hit the barrier of the family and how they treat you, how they've always treated you. And it can be very challenging, can be really challenging time, and it can feel like your world collapses, especially if you push back and you get a tirade back. You can feel like your world collapses, absolutely can. But ultimately, it can be just confusion, and you just need to understand it and understanding what's going on and the players and who they are and their weaknesses. And ultimately, you have to live your life. That's a cool thing, isn't it? Because we all have our own lives to live. And Jordan Peterson did a really quite powerful video. You can ask me if you want for this one, or you can just find it on YouTube. But a really powerful video about breaking, particularly aimed about men, but it's pertinent for women as well. Absolutely, about how men don't become men until their father has died. It's quite stark, but a lot of his stuff can be quite stark. But it was really, I think, really powerful in terms of illustrating that we even if we've flown the nest, when we come back into it, we assume our positions in it all too easily and kind of give our power away and become subservient. And it's difficult then to stand up when there's a conflict there, and especially if we don't like conflict. How long am I going on? I've gone on too long, so I'm going to stop there. But there's a fascinating subject and a fascinating thing as Christmas approaches, the time of all joy and peace and happiness and goodwill to all men and women. Family's a tricky thing. So you have choices. So growing within, and you can choose to not let it affect you, which is an awesome thing. It doesn't mean that they can carry on doing their thing, but you don't have to let it affect you. Or if you're going to push back, know that some things might happen. You might get it stopped her in her tracks, and she just it went and she didn't carry on like that. It was awesome. Or it could be like a bit of an out and out war. But guess what? You might have that, or there might be no contact, and I've experienced that as well in my family. So it's a choice to make, and you have to make it absolutely for you. But what are you doing? I think is a good reflection. Are you living your life, or are you compromising your life in certain ways? Are you compromising when you're with family? Are you compromising when you're in a relationship? Are you compromising? And life is a compromise. What are you choosing to compromise? What are you willing to compromise? Because some things we think we cannot control or change or compromise, yet there is a lot more control that we have than we believe sometimes we have. I think it's a fascinating subject. Do engage in the conversation with me about that if you want to know more about my side, or what I've experienced, or what I've seen, what I've experienced in the clients I've helped and worked with, and the stuff that I've learnt. It's all out there on YouTube. So a good time to stop is now, or quite a few years ago, I'd say. A good time to stop people pleasing, all right? But particularly, why not in families? It's an interesting and challenging thing. And it's absolutely not selfish. Often people think that, oh, no, I want to do my own thing. I'm going to react and live my own life. That's selfish, because you've learned over the years walking on eggshells to be a people pleaser, which is lovely. And it's not that you're not caring. It's not that you're not empathetic. It's not that you're not emotionally attuned to people. Suddenly become harsh or hard or arrogant, or it's not all the negative things. You can still be absolutely that wonderful person. However, you don't compromise yourself, which is a lovely thing, actually, and you give yourself more to the people who encourage and support you more. Because if the family are not supporting your view, are not encouraging your view, are putting you down with a comment, a negative comment, are you derailing you, are other D words, are putting you down and telling you who you are and what you aren't, and in a negative way, is that kind? Is that should you allow that to affect you? Could that be wrong? Could it be their issues, not yours? Could it could it be just? Could there be something to be learned from that? There's a whole openness to be had from that. However, I think there's a lot of damage that happens, and that's the kind of people that I work with, the people that take the damage on themselves, where it's actually not their fault and they've done nothing wrong. and then you become empowered, and you stand in your power, and that's an awesome thing. And I think you should be able to do that. Should you not? So if you don't do that, then it's not, it's your choice. If you choose to keep on doing what you've done before, it just means you remain in the loop. But I love to help the people that want to do more and be more than that. So my invitation to you is, this is quite a long one, is come and find out if you want my help, or come and find out about what I do in more detail, to see if you want to then ask for my help. And my homepage, come and my homepage, I'll put the link in here, in the email if you're watching that, or in the links or comments if you're watching it outside of the emails. Many thanks. I hope you have an awesome rest of the day, and speak to you soon. All right, bye bye.